Welcome back, amazing leaders, to another powerful episode of Building Leadership Community Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Dora Mendez, and today we have an episode that is going to light a fire under your entrepreneurial spirit. We are thrilled to welcome a guest who embodies the intersection of innovation, strategy, and impact, a digital marketing powerhouse who has generated over 112 million in revenue for his clients, mentored over 400 professionals, and continues to push the boundaries of what's possible in business. Our guest today is none other than entrepreneur, author, certified Scrum Master, and the founder and CEO of WebsterBerry Marketing, Arias WebsterBerry. By the end of this conversation, you will walk away with actionable strategies to scale your business, a clearer understanding of how to leverage technology and automation, and the confidence to build a brand that doesn't just sell, but truly connects. This episode is a catalyst to innovate strategically, boldly, and with systems that support sustainable growth. So settle in, take a breath, and get ready. Hello, and welcome to Building Leadership Community Podcast. I'm your host, Dora Mendez. I am the founder and CEO of Coach Dora LLC. Our guests will be entrepreneurs, small business owners, and community leaders that drive social impact. It can be lonely at the top, but it doesn't have to be. It means so much to us that you join us week after week for these conversations, that you continue to show up for season 3. It can be lonely at the top, but it doesn't have to be. That is why we started this podcast. If you are new to Building Leadership Community, we are so glad that you are here. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit those buttons at the bottom of your screen so you never miss an episode. Say hi in the comments. We have some great resources to share with you today. If you're thinking about starting your own podcast, check out our mini course, The Entrepreneur's Podcast Blueprint. I've partnered with my husband and co-producer, Dylan Rogers, to create 5 easy to follow video modules along with a workbook that you can download and follow along at your own pace. And you get a very handy AI prompt sheet that will make getting your episode out there into the world a breeze. The link is in the description. Also, this video includes affiliate links. If you purchase through them, it helps us keep bringing you amazing, inspiring content. Now, let's dive into today's conversation with a visionary entrepreneur. I can't wait for you to meet him. Hold for applause. Hi, how are you?
I am doing amazing, Dora. How are you?
I'm great. Can you pronounce your name for us? I want to make sure I get it right for our audience.
Absolutely. My name is Arias WebsterBerry.
And I want to thank you for being here. I'm so over the moon. Most of our guests are people I know or referrals, and this season has been new for us because people are finding our show. We just hit 16,000 views on YouTube, and your team found us. And this is the first season where we have opened it up and opened our the guest chair, the guest microphone, virtual microphone to folks that I've met through social media and people who have reached out to us. So I want to thank you so much for finding our show, for your folks that were your team finding our show. And I'd love for you to share with our listeners and our viewers your leadership story.
I came to leadership and entrepreneurship kind of in a roundabout way. I didn't seek out being a leader. I didn't seek out where I've landed and the things that I've created. It just kind of went through osmosis. But for me, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I started my first business, I want to say, when I was probably like 10, somewhere around there. It was a dog walking business. And it
We got
just
to start somewhere, right? That's the
absolutely. And it was a short-lived business. It survived for a day. Once my mom found out that I was knocking on strangers' doors asking to walk their dogs, she freaked out and she shut it down. I was profitable though. I think I made like $20 or $25, which, at the age of 10, that I was rich. So, but over the years, I got deeper and deeper into this thing and realizing um, that to really succeed in entrepreneurship, you do have to be a leader. And I personally believe that it starts by leading yourself. It's very hard to handle the mood swings, the personalities, the communication styles of people if you can't master yourself, right? So I've done extensive work to try to handle me and keep me uh, in the lines, so to speak. And I also had the benefit of working in corporate America for decades and being a manager there. I was a sales manager for a really long time. So I've been through all the training programs on various personality types and the dynamics between them, and how to de-escalate and support and have tough conversations. Actually, I got a whole bookcase full of management books and stuff over there. So it's been a ride, and I've somehow figured out how to parlay that into a business that's doing pretty well now.
So, your leadership extends beyond marketing. You've been an executive producer of acclaimed Hip Hop 101 Music and Arts Festival, earning a commendation from Los Angeles City Council for
Mhm.
your cultural impact. Which experience, I'm sure your experience also has been shaped by travel. Because when we first spoke, I think you were talking about traveling to sub-Saharan Africa and that you've been to 25 countries, 35 US states. And it seems like you have, you really combine your strategic vision or storytelling. And I would love for you to share a little bit more about that because I'm so glad that you share that you're continuously learning and improving. That's something that we do here at Coach Dora. We really do believe in continuous learning, continuous improvement, and that growth mindset. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about. I mean, clearly, we share that philosophy. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your travels and how you incorporate that continuous learning into your leadership.
Absolutely. And actually, update, I'm at 30 countries since the last time we talked. So,
All
um,
right.
yeah.
Awesome.
And actually, I'm going to be adding 31 to the list in like 2-3 weeks. I'm going to be in Kenya for our official expansion of Ignite Funnels. We're expanding internationally. Um, but I have been fortunate enough to do a lot of things in my life. I've had a lot of odd jobs, and I've started many companies that have failed. And I did do a several years as a concert producer and festival producer, like you said. My biggest event being the Hip Hop 101 Music and Arts Festival, where we had headliners such as Janelle Monáe, which at the time she was a very little known artist, and now she huge and doing movies and things. We were actually her very first performance in a actual stadium. It was the largest audience she had ever been in at that point in her career. And we also had Ludacris, which is a Grammy-winning artist, and Common, who is a Grammy-winning artist and award-winning actor, um, and Carrie Hilson and Mixmaster Mice from the BC Boys, and a whole bunch of other artists. And yeah, I've worked with tons of artists since when I was in that space and since. And leadership in those spaces is always interesting because you have to deal with such big egos, people who have lots of money, have lots of connections, who are used to getting their way, and in negotiating for uh, honor, respect, and people to hold up their end of the bargain is always tough. But a testament to those that can navigate. Um, I think that leadership is one of those critical things that no matter where you are in your professional role, no matter where you are in your life, it's something that everybody needs to take seriously. Whether you're leading yourself, leading your household, leading at work, leading in your peer group, having great morals, great character, and the ability to stand up for something and know when to sit down for some things is absolutely critical.
That's such a great segue to our next conversational prompt because uh, we often say here leadership is not a job title,
Mm.
and it means different things to different people. So I would love, first of all, you when you said Janelle Monet, I had it in my head because our kids. We just watched Hidden Figures.
Oh yeah,
So that was in my head because um,
she's a sweetheart.
um, and we're such big fans of not only her music but her acting and her activism.
Mhm.
But That's a great segue to what we always discuss here, and it's what does community mean to you? Because leadership can be, lonely and isolating, and we'd love to hear what community means to you, and this is your opportunity to share a bit about maybe some wellness tips because, as we say at the top of our show, it can be lonely at the top, but it doesn't have to be. So what does community mean to you?
Yeah, community is huge, especially as a leader. You're not meant to lead alone. And in my time, I've found that systems, they scale your impact, but community, it sustains the human. And, leadership can be incredibly isolating, especially the higher you rise and the more you accomplish. And especially if you're a mission driven founder, it can be isolating. You're the visionary, you're the decision maker, you're the one people lean on. But what we don't talk about enough is how lonely that becomes, right? Wearing all these hats and bearing the weight of all these people. And that's why I say that community, it isn't optional in leadership. It's essential. So, I believe that systems can keep your business or your position running, but community keeps your spirit intact. And, um, leaders need spaces where they don't have to be strong and they don't have to perform and they don't have to have all the answers. And more importantly, they don't have anybody asking them questions, right? Because everyone needs time to decompress and everyone needs time to heal. And healing doesn't happen typically in isolation, and neither does sustainable impact. So,
So so
yeah.
what do you do to maintain your wellness? Because I will share that you know, I pivoted my career to becoming a entrepreneur, really solopreneur, about like 2 years ago, and I'm so lucky to have the support of my husband when it comes to the show, and, systems like you said, I know that you're the creator of Launch, Ignition AI,
Mhm.
and, systems, of course, help us, like, I know I couldn't, do what I do without AI now. I mean, I'm really proud of becoming more AI fluent and really helping people do the same from wearing my HR and my career coaching hat, like helping them do that. But I went on a retreat this year to Hawaii and it just changed my whole perspective. Um, and then, I realized it's not selfish to take time for myself, and it's not that I actually I needed it. I really needed that, like, reboot. And then I felt selfish because I left my husband and my kids at home, and the kids were like, "How come we can't go to Hawaii?" So, and I was like, I had to get over, like, self-care is not selfish. I had to do all that stuff, and I realized that wellness is really essential. And I decided to launch a club for leaders, no matter where you are in your career trajectory, just to really a space to connect and decompress and share tips and tools. Um, so what do you do to take care of your wellness and well-being? Because you obviously you're busy, you have so much, you're going all over the world, you're doing so much. What do you do to take care of yourself?
Travel is a big one. I love traveling. It is something that everybody wants to take trips and go on vacations and stuff, but um, it's one of the rare times where I'm not fully in control of everything. It's one of the times where I don't have the answers to everything. I don't know people everywhere. So it allows me to really kind of detach and be um, childlike in my exploration, in experiencing things for the first time, like a child. Um, and I don't have to be as guarded. Here in the States, I do podcasts. I'm on the news, and I know a lot of people, especially in the areas that I live or have lived. So I have to kind of be a little bit more on guard. And when I'm traveling, I have less of that. I can just kind of be me. I can just, um,
So you're a traveler as opposed to like a tourist, right? So and that's kind of how you refresh because you're out of your I love that. I love that. I mean, I know that I guess that's like a lot of retirees will go cruising and like they
mhm.
will leave space and explore. Um so I guess for your wellness, because of your business, which is so high profile, leaving the States and traveling and exploring and kind of um, being able to blend in and just explore and enjoy different cultures is how you sort of rejuvenate and reflect. Did I get that right?
And my fiance, she loves it too because when I'm here, we go places, and everywhere we go, people are like, "Oh, hey, they want to talk, and they're like, "Oh, I saw this, and can you help me with that?" We're out of the country. Nobody knows who I am. Nobody cares. We sit in peace. So, yeah, I definitely rejuvenate. I definitely reflect. I decompress, and I get to, um, re, you know, build up my energy, for the next round of work.
So that's a great segue to our last conversation prompt, which is um, what advice would you give the next generation of leaders? Maybe something you may have wanted to know tell your younger self.
It's a good one. Um, I would probably say that you need to make sure that you are one doing something that you love, right? Leading people is tough. Many times it's thankless work. If you're not doing something that you truly enjoy, have a passion for, and can find a way to play in and enjoy, right? You have to have some element of play in your work. Otherwise, it drains you, right? It takes pieces of you, and eventually there's nothing left. So I think that that's a big thing. Um, but the leaders who change the world aren't usually the ones that burn the brightest. They're usually the ones that last the longest, and that's why I say that it's important that you have some kind of joy and play in what you do, because if you enjoy it and you're playing, well, you can do it for forever. Um,
So that's kind of like so joy and play.
mhm.
And that's sort of if you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. That's something that I have come to find, and it's part of the reason why I, pivoted to entrepreneurship. I got tired of working so hard for other people, I really wanted just to do the things that I love to do, that I was good at,
Hmm.
and sharing my expertise so it didn't drain me as much. I'm not saying you don't work hard and it's not hard work and there isn't stress or friction, but at least it's for myself. Like it's for myself, and not making like rich people richer, or you know, enriching myself through joy. And it's part of the reason why I love this podcast, because I get an opportunity to talk to interesting people like yourself, and our audience and listeners get so much insight and inspiration. When I think of the next generation of leader, you mentioned earlier how you were just like an entrepreneur from a young age. A it was just like a natural thing for you. You just had that sort of get up and go, and you've had businesses fail and rebuild. And so I would love for you to share like about risk taking. I would love your perspective on risk taking, because and someone told one of our guests told us how being an entrepreneur is really limitless. You're not limited by someone else's like judgment, or that doesn't mean you don't work hard, doesn't mean all the money comes all the time. But I would just love to someone who has done it um over again so successfully. I think that our audience and listeners would really love your perspective on risk taking.
Yeah, I mean, every business is a risk. It requires time, which is the most precious thing on earth. It requires money. It requires your thoughts, your hopes, your dreams, sacrificing a lot of things. So, risk is a prerequisite to entrepreneurship. There's no way around that. I think the biggest thing is making sure that you are properly prepared. You get really good at asking questions and trying to see around corners. Many times, entrepreneurs end up losing because they don't ask the right questions. They don't stop and think, um, do I know enough about this to get into it? Right? Whether that's the business itself or spending money on various things, you need to educate yourself before you decide to jump into something. And many times in today's day and age, things move so quickly. A lot of people don't feel they have the time to stop and ask questions, but it's absolutely critical for you to be able to manage risk. One of the things that I believe I do very well is I am I'm a cynic. You know,
A cynic, or a critical thinker, or a critical thinker.
they say there's no difference. I people say things to me, and I don't know what it is. My brain just goes wide, right? It gets a container, and I just kind of see the holes in it. So I start asking questions, and I know that that's not everybody's immediate kind of gut reaction. So, I would say whenever you are faced with a risk, you need to kind of make sure you got a lay of the land before you decide to make any decisions. And that's what we've focused on. Um, and the other thing about risk is because, I run a digital marketing agency in a tech business. A lot of times when we're talking to entrepreneurs, they see marketing stuff, or they see various opportunities as just an expense. I'm sorry, as a yeah,
I
they
see.
see it
They don't understand the return on investment, the
exactly the
ROI.
opportunity.
They don't understand that there's a return on investment,
Right.
with it's an investment rather than an expense.
Exactly, because they don't look at the other side of it. Right. If somebody can't, I never forget this. I was watching Russell Brunson. I don't know if you know who Russell Brunson is. He is a legendary digital marketer, probably the best digital marketer on the planet. Um, and he went on stage and he had a cell phone, and he told the crowd, he said, before the end of my talk today, one of you is going to give me $1 million for this cell phone. And I was just like, that is a bold claim. You're doing the Babe Ruth thing. You're pointing in the stands, right? And he said, if I told you that this was $1 million, how many of you would give it to me right now? No one put up their hands. And then he started going through all the things that was in the phone. He said, hey, I have over 1,000 different books, business books that are in this phone. I have over 2,000 podcast recordings that are in this phone. I also have my entire contact list of all of my clients and all of my investors in this phone, along with a whole bunch of other stuff. Then he asked, who wants to buy this phone? Right? Tons of hands shot up. I think he ended up selling like 3 or 4 of them. He made like $4 million, right? Off of a cell phone. And that's the thing. If you're looking at it and you say, hey, a cell phone for $1 million wouldn't do it in a million years. But if you look at the opportunity cost, right, what you can actually stand to gain from what's inside of it, well, then $1 million seems like a steal for everything that's in it. And when it comes to risk, you have to look at what you stand to gain, not just what you stand to lose.
So I really, I like that analogy about where you stand to gain rather than where you stand to lose. So if you could boil down sort of your leadership philosophy into like one sentence or a phrase, or what what would that be? I'm putting you on the spot now.
Leadership in one phrase. I don't know if that's well, get rich or die trying.
Get rich or die trying.
I think it's okay to die on the field, man. You know?
That's a oh, I like that movie too, right? Isn't that a movie?
Yeah.
I'd love to leave the microphone open to you to share how people can get in touch with you, can learn more about you, learn more about your business. You have so many things going on. What would you like to leave our audience and viewers with?
Yeah, I think in this day and age, most people are trying to figure out how to make more money, keep more money, get more of their time back, um, while still making, money or increasing it. And in one of my companies, Ignite Funnels, that's exactly what we built our software for. We built it to help businesses generate more leads and turn those leads into dollars and help them manage their businesses easier without having to add more employees in crazy expenses. Because what I've learned, and you said it many times, that I do run several businesses and I have, tons of employees and lots of initiatives. I couldn't do any of those things without systems. Building systems is what allows me to protect my peace. So, ignitefunnels.com. If you're in the States, we're getting ready to launch in Kenya. So if you're in Kenya watching this, or you're in on the continent of Africa, you can go to ignitefunnels.ke. And we give away, 2 weeks to a month's worth of access to the platform for free. So you can try it before you buy it. But yeah, I think the systems are the critical thing, in community, right? Communities building a community. It reminds you who you are, right? Surround yourself with impactful people, because, your impact doesn't require you to erase who you are. It just requires you to be intentional about who you are and what you want to get accomplished. And, keep in mind that you're allowed to grow and still be human while you do it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like I could talk to you more forever and ever about all kinds of things. I
Yeah.
mean, I think what you're doing with Ignite Funnels is amazing. I know that I shared with you, I took a trip to Kenya years ago in my college days,
Yeah.
and how much just when you visit, be careful the altitude. I was like short of breath, and this was years ago when I was much younger and healthier. And I'm like, why am I out of the breath? Like, why am I out of breath walking upstairs?
Yeah.
So just prepare yourself for the difference in altitude. when you visit. And I think the work that you're doing is amazing. We will share those website links in the description of this program, Ignite Funnels. Um, Thank you so much for being here. If you can hold on for a moment
Sure.
as we roll our closing credits. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Building Leadership Community. Watch on YouTube at Coach Dora M. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube at Coach Dora M. Visit me on the web at CoachDoraMendez.com. Hosted by me, Dora Mendez. Produced by Dora Mendez and Dylan Rogers. Graphics, editing, and sound mixing by Dylan Rogers.